Hi, this is Des Futak here from desfutak.com on day number 28 of my 90-day Internet Marketing Challenge. I'm coming towards the end of a series of videos that I've been doing talking about a book called Tuned In, which I think has been, well, a very helpful book to me personally as an internet marketer. Although the book's concentrating on offline businesses and how they can use advertising to promote their services and products on the internet, I think for me as an internet marketer, marketing online and running an online business, it's very, very similar. What I want to talk to you today is near the top of this kind of pyramid shape that the authors of the book describe, and that's really cultivating a tuned-in culture. And what it's really getting at here, what we're trying to describe to you, is if you're part of a company or a business or a group of people, you need to develop a tuned-in culture rather than a tuned-out culture. And the difference between the two is actually very big. Tuned-out cultures tend to rely on big advertising, opinions, ego to drive where things go, and they don't necessarily rely on connecting with their potential clients. Whereas in a tuned-in culture, they go through these 6 steps that are needed in order to establish what's called a resonator. A resonator is a product or a service which just basically rings out and rings true in people's lives, so they just want to have that product or service to solve their problems. And in a tuned-in culture, they make sure that they go through a series of steps in order to get that product or service, that resonator, to really be very, very powerful. And sometimes companies get close, but they don't necessarily hit the mark. And often the reason for that is that one of those 6 or 7 steps is missing. So, for example, you might find a company that doesn't really, segment the market properly. So they may have got lots of data, they may have found out about their buying personas, but they may not have segmented them out into different areas. They may not necessarily have identified all those different groupings of people. So really what I want to do to you is for you today is just summarise some of the key things that a tuned-in culture needs to have in place. And I'm going to be looking at my crib notes here. In order to really make sure that they develop a product or service which really resonates with people. Okay, so the first thing, and I suppose it's really the most obvious thing, is that a company needs to get out there in the marketplace. You need to be asking your potential clients questions. You need to find out what their problems are. You need to be able to hear what their language is, what the words they use, the phrases they use, the things they articulate their problems with, because that's the biggest way to connect with people. Okay, if you can articulate what you offer in their language and their buying language, you speak to them at a much deeper level. Okay, so that's a very, very important thing to do. The second thing that's very, very important to do is to make sure that in your decision-making process within your company or corporation, that whenever you have a meeting, whenever you're trying to make big decisions about where to take the company, you make sure that at a critical point in that decision-making process, that there is that reliance on the data, because the data is king, and so often ego and opinion can get in the way. And it's quite a frightening statistic that even today 70% of marketing decisions tend to be based on gut reactions and opinion rather than on real data and real research. So you must make sure that you throw out opinion and you only rely on what the data tells you, what the information tells you based on your research. Now, if you're doing an online business, obviously you can do that in a number of ways. The primary way to do that is through surveys. And finding connections with people through doing webinars, free webinars, or perhaps using Ustream TV, which is something I mentioned before, where you kind of hold a seminar, webinar type event, or a doctor's workshop, as Jimmy Davis sometimes likes to say, where he runs, I think, every Tuesday evening. He and Dennis Carnegie run this kind of like a workshop where people can just come online and ask their questions, and they just give free information to people. Now, one of the reasons why they do that is obviously they're building trust with potential clients, but even the people that don't end up using their products or services, that's valuable data they're gathering, because they've got information, they've got buyer's language, they're hearing what people's problems are, that it's been articulated to them in a very, very strong way, in a very clear way, so they know how to phrase what they can offer, the products and services that they develop as a consequence. And what they've done on the back end of this is actually develop a whole company called My Story Marketing, where they produce a complete website solution for online marketers, including, you know, setting up a profile, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you know, Ustream TV. They just do the whole shebang and offer it as a finished product for new online internet marketers who often have a massive problem because they want to get out there and market their stuff, but they don't have the technical skills to do that. They have perhaps the marketing skills, but not necessarily the technical skills. It's actually quite unusual for somebody to have the kind of the techie, nerdy, geeky side as well as being a good communicator. It's not often you get those two things come together, and they recognise that, so that's a product and service that they're providing for people. Another example of this is Apple. Apple developed the iPod, which I think the kind of the mission statement, the pithy statement, was 1,000 songs in your pocket, and that was a very, very powerful message for people. It resonated at a very, very deep level. And another thing they did is they did lots of research and finding out what it is about MP3 players that people did like and didn't like. And one of the key things about iPods, they would argue, and I would probably agree with them, is the navigation is very, very smooth and easy to do, and that's been one of the massive selling points of their products. Apart from being small and sleek, they're also very, very easy to navigate, and they contain lots of songs, obviously, and a lot of people have copied them ever since, but I don't think many people have managed to beat the iPod. So you need to make sure that you develop products and services that are based on the actual data that you've got. Now, just looking at another bit of crib sheet here. Oh yeah, another really, really important thing is when you advertise yourself on the internet, when you say this is what you can do, you need to make sure that you're actually speaking in the client's language, the customer's language, and not the corporate kind of marketing gobbledygook that often comes out from websites in mission statements, which actually, you know, you read them, you think, I don't really know what this means, and it just sounds like a load of mush, you know, it sounds like a load of corporate speak, and often it is. So you need to articulate what it is you do, what your unique selling point is in the language of your potential clients. It may sound like an obvious thing, but it's very, very easy to miss this. So the standard acronym is WIIFM, which is what's in it for me. Okay, so as a client, as a customer, me reading your website, what's in it for me? And a very, very simple thing you can do is just look at the number of times you have the word we on the website and the number of times you have the word you. And if the we's outweigh the you's, then you need to change the way you're communicating with your potential customers, because at the end of the day, if it's all about you as your business, they're going to read and think, oh, I don't really like that, I'll go somewhere else. So you need to make sure that you're always thinking with the glasses of the customer and not with you just blabbering off as a corporate, you know, entity. Is there anything else I need to think? Oh yeah, another thing you need to do in your business, perhaps maybe the most important thing, is you need to have somebody, perhaps a COO, the Chief Operations Officer, who's, you know, perhaps in charge of marketing and business development in the company. The COO of the company, not the CEO, the COO, needs to have that I suppose, remit from the executives in the company. The COO needs to have the remit to be able to have time to think through these issues, okay? So develop a tuned-in culture within the organisation. I mean, some people say that Apple's almost like a religion for some people, but if you hear the employees, if you go into an Apple shop, if you go into an Apple store, or you go to their website, there's a whole kind of like lifestyle approach from the whole company, okay? It resonates very, very deeply at every level. Likewise, Google's very, very similar. The executives of Google, they wanted to make sure that the company has a kind of a whole philosophy that everyone buys into, and that's a very, very important to the whole business. Now, some people kind of think this is almost like brainwashing, and maybe you're kind of afraid that it is, but if you buy into that culture in that organisation, then you know how they think, you know how to communicate with the people. It echoes in a very powerful way at all levels of the organisation. And so when products come out that are real resonators, the whole company can be tuned in with it, so that not just the product is a resonator, but the whole company resonates with that very, very powerfully as well. And that kind of whole process can carry on for a very, very long time, echoing down. Think of the Apple iPod, the Apple iTouch, the Apple iPhone. These products have all been kind of like developed on the back of the original research that Apple did. And now they've obviously got a client base. Now they're just refining the product. But who knows what's going to happen next with that company. It'll be interesting to see what they come out with next that's very different. So that's a really important part of the whole process, to develop a tuned-in culture within your organisation. So cultivating a tuned-in culture is the penultimate step in making sure your product or service really resonates with the customer. Okay, I won't say any more now. Go into desfutech.com /tuned in to download some notes, or go to desrecommends.com tuned in to get the book, and find out more about this book, which I think is an excellent way to find out about how to market your products and services online. And I look forward to chatting with you on Twitter and Facebook. Facebook. Maybe Twacebook's a new combination that nobody knows about yet. Anyway, I better go now because I'm running out of time. See you soon. Bye.